A worker is only as good as his tools, and if you want to clear away snow or cut down a forest, there's a vehicle out there that's made to help you get the job done. Today we're going to grab our hard hats and look at these specialized vehicles as we dig a trench, haul a spaceship, and clear a minefield by checking out some extreme heavy vehicles for satisfyingly specific jobs. Sweeping the battlefield. In World War II, when the Allies stormed Normandy and started moving in to reclaim France, there was a problem. They discovered that their path was blocked by 6.5 million landmines stretching from southern France to Norway. Detecting and removing mines with a handheld metal detector is a long and dangerous process, but luckily the Allies had a heavy vehicle made for this task called the mine flail tank. You wouldn't want to stand near that when it spins up. This vehicle was first developed by a South African captain called Abraham Dutoit, who invented it during the Battle for North Africa in 1942. Tanks are usually used to blow up the enemy, but these giant vehicles use spinning chains to smash down on the ground and detonate mines hidden under the surface. Because the flail was held out in front of the tank, the mines exploded a relatively safe distance away from its body as the vehicles cleared a path through the battlefield for the infantry following behind. These tanks were instrumental in clearing mines in France in 1944, which allowed the Allies to retake Europe. However, modern-day mine-clearing tanks are even faster and more effective. The M1150 assault breacher vehicle is based on the body of a standard M1 Abrams tank. However, it swaps the big gun for a plow that digs up hidden mines and shunts them out of the way to clear a safe path. The vehicle is also equipped with a mine-clearing line charge, which is essentially a long rope that's filled with 1,750 pounds of C4 explosives. This rocket-propelled explosive rope costs nearly $8,000 to fire, and the tank can launch at 300 feet over the battlefield. Once the rope is landed on the ground, the tank's crew can manually detonate the explosives along its length, which blows up any mines hidden under the surface. Pretty cool, huh? Still, if you dislike the modern equivalent, the World War II flail tank is perfect for your ordinary day-to-day mine clearing, and better yet, using it won't set you back 6 months' rent. Spider shovel, spider shovel. Ever wondered how to use an excavator on the side of a mountain? I assume you haven't, but this worker was spotted digging into the side of a steep slope to preemptively loosen mudslide-prone ground by dangling a tracked excavator over the edge with some ultra-heavy-duty steel cables. Now, admittedly, that excavator features a hydraulic system allowing it to elevate its body at the required angle for slope work, but another heavily specialized vehicle can perform similarly precarious tasks a lot more easily. The spider excavator can't shoot webs, but the machine does have 4 articulated legs that let it climb much steeper terrain than a standard excavator. Each hydraulic leg is individually powered, and the driver can control each one separately with a system of pedals and joysticks. This makes the vehicle incredibly complicated to drive, but it also gives it the flexibility to negotiate 60-degree slopes and wade through water up to 5 feet deep. It's also able to perform specialized jobs like digging flat sections into steep slopes so buildings can be constructed on hillsides, or climbing into a blocked river and redirecting the course of the water. If you tried to perform especially waterlogged or steep-angled jobs in a standard excavator, you'd usually have to either carefully dig out your own road across the steep slope first, or be suspended from above on cables. But the sure-footed spider excavators can go anywhere, anytime, and better yet, when the job is done, they can celebrate by busting out some sweet dance moves. Of course, that jig is nothing compared to the victory dance that I do when I win at my favorite mobile game, Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus, the sponsor of today's video. This turn-based strategy game is set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, and it allows you to collect and fight with over 70 unique champions from 17 different factions. Once you've built a roster of powerful warriors, you can take part in fast-paced tactical skirmishes over a range of game modes. Attempt to out-strategize other players in PvP battles, fight solo in campaign mode, or team up with a community of gamers to defeat powerful bosses in PvE guild raids. In Tacticus, each battle will require real tactics to win, and as you expand your collection of characters, you can find new strategies to defeat the enemy with their unique abilities. Even as you progress, Snowprint Studios keep introducing new features, fresh game modes, and live events. So whether you're a veteran of the Warhammer universe or a newcomer, you'll never run out of new challenges and things to do. If you want to join the fight, you can download Tacticus for free with the QR code on screen. And if you use the code NOVHELLO before December 1st, you can claim 2,000 gold and 50 Blackstones that'll help you to achieve victory. Now let's head from the Warhammer universe back to reality and check out some more extreme heavy vehicles. You need a lift, bro? Behold the Pioneering Spirit, a ship that's specially designed to carry deep ocean oil rigs. The vehicle is the heaviest ship in the world, and it installs and removes the rigs like a giant forklift truck using a split hull with a gap in the middle. Incredibly, it can lift a 24,000-ton rig in 10 seconds, and its maximum lift weight is 48,000 tons, which is 2,000 tons more than the Titanic and almost as much as your mom. To remove a rig, the Pioneering Spirit starts by letting seawater into a ballast tank, which causes the entire ship to sink lower into the ocean. Then after it positions the oil rig inside its split hull, 16 lifting arms move underneath the rig and attach themselves to it with huge clamping pistons. At this point, the ship releases the water from the ballast tank while the arms simultaneously lift the rig out of the water, allowing the Pioneering Spirit to carry it back to shore. The ship costs $2.8 billion to build, which is pretty steep. But when an oil well runs dry, rigs need to be removed, and before the Pioneering Spirit existed, companies would perform the job by chopping the rig into pieces and taking them back to shore with a whole fleet of smaller ships. In contrast, the Pioneering Spirit is far more efficient as it lifts these 48,000-ton structures in one swift motion and carries them around like a big metallic baby. To think I struggle to carry the groceries home. Stop! Hammer time! Let's move from vehicles that lift things up to one that's designed to push things into the ground. A pile driver is a devastating wrestling move that I use to perform on my little brother, and it's also a vehicle that's used to hammer gigantic beams called piles into the ground. Sometimes a building needs to be constructed on soft earth that's too weak to take its weight, so long piles are pushed into the ground until they reach a tougher layer of soil or rock that's more secure. Then the building is built on top of the piles, as the tougher ground they're sitting on offers a more stable structural foundation. Most pile drivers install these beams by lifting a heavy weight into the air before dropping it on top of the pile to force it into the ground. They might lift the weight using hydraulics or a diesel engine, but the principle's basically the same as they function like a supersized hammer. Other piling vehicles like the Morrissey CFA piling rig work like a giant drill, as they create a hole in the ground with a spinning auger before filling it with liquid concrete that will solidify into a strong pile. It's much quieter than smashing piles in with a giant mallet, and the Morrissey can easily drill 165-foot deep shafts in the ground to support entire buildings. That makes me feel pretty bad about my last DIY project. The NASA Crawler. Up next, weighing in at 3,300 tons, allow me to introduce the reigning, defending, super heavyweight champion of the transporter world, the NASA Crawler Transporter. When it's time to launch a rocket at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, NASA needs to transport their spacecraft from the vehicle assembly building to the launch site. This job is carried out by two gigantic transporters called Hans and Franz, who ferry rockets down a 4.2-mile connecting road called the Crawlerway. The transporters work by entering the vehicle assembly building and driving underneath the platform that the rockets sit on, the Mobile Launcher Platform, or MLP. Then the crawler's adjustable suspension raises the vehicle's deck so it makes contact with the MLP and lifts it before carrying it to the other end of the crawlerway at a whopping 1 mile per hour. When it reaches the launch pad, it docks into a structure with 6 leg-like pedestals and lowers its deck until the MLP is fully supported by them. At this point, the crawler can drive away and the rocket is ready for launch. In square footage, both Hans and Franz's platforms are around 3 times the size of a basketball court, and the gigantic vehicles are 15 times heavier than the Statue of Liberty. Hans and Franz have been used since their creation in 1965, and they played a crucial role in the 1969 Apollo moon landing. But the old-timers aren't ready to retire just yet, as they're set to be a key part of the upcoming Artemis program, which is aiming to put people back on the moon for the first time since 1972. Man, the Crawlerway really is one small drive for a transporter, but one giant trip for transporter kind. Turbo tree trimming. Let's have a break from all this machinery and take a nice walk in the woods. Wait, what's that noise? This is the Feller Buncher, a logging vehicle that can grip a tree with a giant grasping arm before cutting through it with a built-in saw blade. The vehicle treats trunks like twigs, and once it's sawn through, its arm can place it in an orderly pile for a log truck to take away later on. The Feller Buncher can do the work of a bunch of fellas, but there are other methods for felling trees. Some amateur lumberjacks attempt to rip trees out of the ground by attaching a chain to a vehicle, looping it around the tree trunk, and using their engine power to pull it down. This method works well for the smaller tree stumps in your backyard, but if you need to wipe out a forest in a pinch and cause widespread deforestation really efficiently, there's only one vehicle for the job. Geez, does anybody else wish the trees could fight back? Dashing through the snow. Let's move on to something a bit more chilled out now. This is the Overossen ASRS 600 snowplow truck, a vehicle that's specifically designed for clearing airport runways. Its 38-foot plow blade and accompanying rear sweeping system make it the largest runway sweeper in the world, and its top working speed of 40 miles per hour allows it to clear 5,253,000 square feet in an hour. That's roughly the size of 91 NFL football fields. I need to get one of those for my driveway. The RS600 ensures your flight leaves on time, but what if you're taking the train? Well, snowy tracks are usually cleared with a gigantic wedge plow that can be fixed to the front of a passenger train to push the snow to the side. However, they can typically only clear snow up to 13 feet deep, so if there's been a really heavy fall, rail workers will turn to something much larger. This behemoth is the rotary snowplow, a 150-ton monster with an 11-foot spinning blade that absolutely glides through thick snow. The plow's blade is powered with an engine, and its gigantic blades churn up the snow, then feed it into a chute that fires it out away from the tracks. The driver can control what side the snow is ejected on in case there's buildings on the side of the tracks or they happen to travel past their ex's car. These kinds of vehicles have been used since 1869, and although they look terrifying, they're actually far safer to use than wedge plows. See, wedge plows use momentum to clear the snow, and in extreme conditions, they need to travel at up to 50 miles per hour to effectively clear a track. In contrast, the engine-powered rotary plows don't rely on momentum, so they methodically cut through the snow at just half a mile per hour. But despite their slow pace and expensive maintenance costs in especially snowy places, rotaries are the only plow that'll get the job done, like in the Donner Mountain Pass that runs through California's Sierra Nevada mountain range. In 2017, 14 miles of train track in the mountain pass were covered with over 13 feet of snow, and in one weekend, a rotary managed to clear enough snow from the area to fill 57 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Thank you, rotary plow. Very cool. In the trenches. If you want to leave your mark on the world, may I suggest using this, a colossal vehicle-mounted chainsaw. This incredible vehicle is a chain trencher, and it's designed for digging wide trenches in soil and soft rock, creating space for underground water pipes and cables. While the average handheld chainsaw engine has around 3 horsepower, the biggest chain trenchers use up to 600, as they cut ditches 22 feet deep and 6 feet wide into the earth. Still, if you're digging in a residential area, you can't just carve up the entire street, so you'll need to dig a narrower trench with a different type of trencher called a rock saw. This rock and rollin' trencher's narrow blades means that all the vehicle's power is concentrated into a smaller area, which allows it to cut through tougher materials than a chain trencher, like hard rock concrete and your Pop-Pop's overcooked steaks. Rock saws are often used in urban areas to lay electricity and phone lines and even fiber optic cables that help increase the speed of everyone's internet connection. This means these vehicles are partially responsible for your Wi-Fi speed, and you can thank them for allowing you to stream your favorite shows, message hot singles in your area, and hit that like and subscribe button down below. Nice. A bridge too long. The overburden conveyor bridge F60 is the largest movable machine in the world, and at 1,640 feet long, the mining vehicle is almost 200 feet longer than the Empire State Building. The humongous vehicle is tasked with both digging and removing excess soil and rock from coal mines, and it's one hell of an operation. See, the machine uses two massive excavator systems to dig up the earth and rock before transferring them onto a long conveyor belt built into the vehicle. This conveyor belt carries the waste across the length of the F60's bridge before dumping it onto a designated spot on the other side of the mine. With this method, the vehicle can remove 50,000 tons of earth from a mine per hour, which would be enough to bury an entire soccer field to a depth of 26 feet. Its 13,500-ton body moves at half a mile per hour on 760 train wheels, inching its way forward through the landscape, and once it's removed the layers of dirt over the coal and the precious resources at the surface, other smaller excavators swoop in on the seam to extract that sweet, sweet coal. So while the F60 isn't setting any speed records, it's an incredibly impressive vehicle to watch from a distance. I bet all the dust and fumes are terrible for your lungs. Bridge over troubled water. Let's stay on bridges as we re-enlist in the military and take a look at another heavily modified tank. The Armored Vehicle Launched Bridge, or AVLB, is a type of combat support vehicle that carries a huge folding bridge instead of a gun. The M60 AVLB is an American version of the vehicle that's built on the body of an M60 battle tank. The 60-ton M60 has been used since its debut in 1967, and its bridge can be deployed in 2 minutes. So if your platoon comes upon a deep river, a wide gap, or a pit full of sharks, cairns, and mines, this vehicle can help your foot soldiers and vehicles cross it incredibly quickly. An AVLB can typically carry a bridge that's up to 60 feet long and can support up to 60 tons, allowing it to support the weight of most tanks. Once these vehicles have crossed, the AVLB can drive over the bridge itself before picking it back up and carrying on its way. It's an impressively fast operation, but I bet those 2 minutes feel like a lifetime when you're inside the tank taking on enemy fire. Junk in the trunk. All my exes will tell you that I have the biggest dump truck in the world. But when it comes to vehicles, the biggest dumper on the planet is undoubtedly the Balaz 75710. This behemoth weighs 400 tons unloaded, and the vehicle is a mining haul truck that's designed to carry excess dirt out of a mine as we dig for precious resources. Mining just 1 ton of coal involves digging up around 5 tons of earth, but luckily the Balaz can carry a mind-boggling 500 tons out of a mine at a time. For context, this is roughly the same weight as 2 blue whales. Unsurprisingly, this lifting power doesn't come cheap. A single Balaz tire costs $90,000, and the vehicle itself will set you back $6 million. This makes the Balaz the undisputed king of the dump truck family, but with our budget, we might have to settle for something a little bit smaller. In the US, to avoid destroying the country's roads, the heaviest that a fully loaded road-legal truck can be is 80,000 pounds, which is 10 times lighter than an empty Balaz. See, unlike the Balaz, road-legal trucks are generally used to transport heavy loads over long distances, and when a truck like this Kenworth W900L reaches its destination, it uses hydraulic mechanisms to lift its trailer up and unload its contents. This is typically used to deliver the truck's load at the end of a journey. However, on a construction site, this hydraulic ability can be used by smaller dump trucks to perform incredibly specific jobs, like reverse drop spreading gravel. This is a method of creating a gravel path that involves opening the back of the truck's bed and tipping the gravel out while simultaneously driving backwards. This allows a truck driver to create a path on soft terrain without ruining the ground below as they drive on the path as they create it. This job requires incredible precision with a giant vehicle, and personally, it puts my driving to shame. I can barely reverse into a parking space. The Big Bud. Farming is a big job that requires suitably big vehicles, but this next big boy is on another level. Meet the Big Bud 747, a one-of-a-kind tractor that was built in 1977 for a pair of farmers called the Rossi brothers. Sometimes soil that's around 20 inches underneath the surface becomes too compacted for crops to grow above it, and deep ripping is a technique that involves dragging long metal tines through a field to loosen this soil. The Rossi brothers owned a 20,000-acre cotton farm in California, and they wanted a tractor that was powerful enough to carry a giant deep ripper that could rip a third of their land every year. So they placed a custom order with the Big Equipment Company, a manufacturer that specializes in building gigantic tractors. The result was the 747, a tractor with 8-foot-tall tires and a fully fueled weight of 100,000 pounds, which officially made it the largest farm tractor in the world. The Big Bud can only move at 8 miles per hour, but it was large enough to work on the Rossi's farm, and the vehicle is still used today on a different farm in Big Sandy, Montana. It isn't only used for deep ripping though, as it's also strong enough to pull an 80-foot wide cultivator, which is an attachment that stirs up soil on the surface to get it ready for planting. In contrast, most of the largest commercially available cultivators are just 60 feet wide, so the Big Bud can use its supersized version to cultivate a field considerably faster than other large tractors. It can cultivate an acre of land in around a minute, and as it carves through a field, its weight is spread out between its 8 massive tires so it doesn't compact the ground below it. But why stop there? Photoshopped images of Big Buds and other tractors with up to 40 tires have gone viral, as folks have imagined just how many wheels you can fit onto the vehicle. Of course, this many tires would massively hinder the Big Bud's legendary efficiency. After all, I'd like to see the vehicle plow an acre in a minute when it takes an hour to turn around. Transporting telescopes. The Atacama Large Millimeter Array, or ALMA, is a $1.4 billion observatory in Chile that uses 66 giant radio telescopes to observe the stars. The array was built in the middle of the 25 million acre Atacama Desert, and unsurprisingly, transporting the 100-ton telescope antenna to the remote location required an incredibly specialized vehicle. Meet Otto and Lore, the custom 140-ton transporters that lug ALMA's telescopes around the desert. They each have 28 wheels propelled by 1,400 horsepower, and the driving seat is fitted with an oxygen tank so the driver can breathe at ALMA's altitude of 3 miles above sea level. The vehicles have brains as well as brawn, and they can actually pick the telescopes up themselves with a loading system that precisely mounts and secures the equipment onto their backs. Then Otto and Lore will set off into the desert at 8 miles per hour, moving the antennas between different pads depending on what observations the scientists are trying to make. This flexibility allows them to make incredible scientific discoveries, and in 2019, ALMA teamed up with other arrays around the world to capture the first ever image of a black hole from 54 million light years away. This image wouldn't be possible without Otto and Lore's incredible transporting skills, and their specific job allows us to see truly groundbreaking images of the cosmos. Mad Max. Next up, we've got a beastly high-tech trailer that can turn itself into a road train. The Faymanville Module Max is a self-propelled modular transporter which can be used as a regular truck trailer or a self-propelled vehicle that's operated with a remote control. The trailer is propelled with a power pack that has its own built-in engine. This means that each trailer can produce up to 500 horsepower, which allows the gigantic RC car to carry up to 300 tons. You can also link several of the transporters together into a train-like chain to lift even more weight, and according to Faymanville, they can be connected to haul a maximum weight of 5,000 tons while being operated by a single controller. This modular carrying capacity allows them to have gigantic objects, and in shipyards they're commonly used to transport entire ships, and the engines of giant container ships which can weigh up to 2,300 tons. Now, these beasts only self-propel at around 3 miles per hour when fully loaded, so they're connected to trucks when the load needs to be transported over long distances, allowing for speeds of up to 50 miles per hour. However, the fact that the unassuming Module Max could single-handedly carry a 2,300-ton ship engine and still have more than half its capacity to spare is incredibly impressive. This is one of the only vehicles in the world that allows you to transport gigantic loads with a remote control, and honestly, it puts my childhood RC car to absolute shame. Sorry, bud, you're staying in the garage. Before I go, I want to give a quick thanks to Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus for making this video possible. Remember, to join the fight yourself, all you need to do is scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description and use the code NOVHELLO to claim your free gifts. Whew, watching all that work has tired me out, so I think it's time we end our ride atop those incredible heavy vehicles. Which machine was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.